Hey everybody, good evening. How are you? Sorry I'm a few minutes late. My daughter cooked a really good dinner tonight, and I wasn't going to sit around until 10 o'clock not eating it. And I also wasn't going to shovel it into my face like I was racing someone. So I was enjoying that, and it went over a few minutes. But anyway, how is everyone? It's good to see you. It's good to be seen by you. I am Bill Sylvie, aka the Dungeon Delver. But that's not who I've always been. No, indeed. It's kind of a strange day for me, and difficult and not fun. I'm just gonna get right to it. One of my best friends was a gentleman by the name of Eric Peterson. Hey, Trace. And I'm going to tell you guys about Eric tonight, and we're going to remember him because he would have liked this. He would have liked this whole setup. I would have dragged him kicking and screaming onto the show. I would have made him a fixture on the show, just like Kyle, like Kyle on Wednesday and Eric on Thursday or something like that. So once upon a time, back in about 2000, late 2001, early 2002, I guess it would have been 2003. It would have been 2003. I had little baby Charlotte. My wife worked, and I stayed at home tending the baby. And I'd sit there behind the computer with chair lock, baby in my arms, because Charlotte wasn't going to be put down. And I'd surf the internet, baby under one arm, sometimes, kind of propping a bottle up and just kind of leaning back with her, but using my computer mouse and navigating around the web, looking at things to stop my brain from turning into tapioca. And I used to read like the front page articles and weird links at a now dead website. I mean, it's still there, but not that you could tell for it, called Something Awful. And there was this little list of websites off to the left or right, I don't remember, and it's not important, called Friends of Something Awful. And one of them was a website called Portal of Evil. And I was like, Portal of Evil? What the hell is Portal of Evil? And I checked it out. And it was kind of, it was an atrocity tourism website. It was literally just categories of the weird and bizarre middle-aged or late-aged Web 1.0. We'd point and laugh at just the strangest communities. Sometimes they were communities of just one person. And so, and a lot of times the webmasters would find out that they were a feature on Portal of Evil, and they'd come over and they'd say, yeah, that's pretty crazy. And they'd laugh and they'd join us. One of us. But there were comment threads under these, of course. Now, we were not like, it was not a hate website. It wasn't like, look at those disadvantaged people over there. It was, look at these otherwise normal people doing very abnormal things and then putting it up on the internet. So, furries, otherkin, that kind of thing. Well, there were forums, comment threads, and I would comment on the comment threads. Slowly, surely, typing with Windows on-screen keyboard and the mouse. And I didn't have an account. And if you didn't have an account and you posted a message, the message would post, but it would show your IP address and its point of origin. So like I had Roadrunner broadband internet. So CF, my username, which I don't even know why I did this, because it was next to impossible to type. Because if you had an account and you logged in, you were good. But if you didn't, every time you wanted to post a message, because this is, autocomplete was not a surefire thing, you'd have to type in your username. And my username was, and I'm not making this up, humana. I don't know why. Don't ask me why. It doesn't make any sense. It didn't then and it doesn't now, but I did it. And I'd leave what I guess were funnier, insightful comments, and there'd be my username and then a big string of data about where I was. And finally, this user, Repomancer, would respond positively to some of my posts. Repomancer. And finally, one day he said, "For God's sake, register your account." So I did. And we hung out until that website kind of went the way of all websites. All websites will go away someday. At some point in the future, there will be no YouTube. I mean, how many people had Angel Fire web pages and you were in WebRings and stuff back in the 1995, 96, and you were like, you put the under construction banner on your links, the little working guy GIF, the little rotating red lights and the spinning skull graphics, and you thought, this is it. This is it. And now those websites are gone. Those websites are gone. Your Yahoo page, your AOL page, your GeoCities account, your, all those. Pew. Just gone. And Portal of Evil is gone too. But before it went away, I realized that these were not like vicious people who would come and find you and dox you and torment you and call your employers, and that you could get in trouble with the FCC. They were just nerds. They didn't care. Nerds on the internet. Oh my God. Now, Repo had been on there for a long time. Longer than I had, because the website had been around since 1998. And a bit of trivia about Portal of Evil and Portal of Evil News, they were founded by a guy named Chet Falasek. Chet did a bunch of the writing for Valve software for Portal, Portal 2, Half-Life 2 Episode 1, Half-Life 2 Episode 2, possibly Half-Life 2. He went on to that. Chet also founded the website oldmanmurray.com. So he had a reputation in the video game industry. But Portal of Evil was our little romper room, our little playhouse. And so most of the people, it was kind of hard to get to know. But Repo, I got to know. And one day he's talking to people about some subject about programming. And when I was working on that, and I kind of sussed it out, and I clicked on his user account and I started going through his posts, because that was something you could do. I started going through his posts, and I was like, wait, did you work on MechWarrior 2? Because MechWarrior 2 was, let's see, 1995, 2000. So it was like 7 years old at this point. But MechWarrior 2 was just one of those games that had kind of, you know, it was just like a constant thing. I didn't have the computer to run MechWarrior 2 at a decent frame rate with decent graphics when it first came out, but by God, I forced it to work on computers that it was never supposed to work on. And he said, yeah, I worked on that. I said, wow, that is fascinating. And he would tell tales about the development cycle. Did any of you guys ever play the MechWarrior 2 demo Bone Machine? Did you play Bone Machine? I'll tell you the story about Bone Machine. Eric and the programming team that was working on MechWarrior 2, Eric doing basically the 3D stuff, the graphics engine, everything that kind of made the game a game. But Eric said, like, their work weeks were from late Saturday evening until Wednesday morning. And then Wednesday afternoon, all day Thursday, all day Friday was the weekend. So they're getting ready to go home for the weekend. And the project manager comes through and says, there's a group of Activision investors that want to see a working demo, not a rolling one, a working demo. They're coming in at 5:00 this afternoon. That's the equivalent of telling somebody at 2:00 on a Friday afternoon that at midnight, the big bosses are coming in, or the investors. So they drop what they're doing and they went into overdrive. And in the space of a few hours, they put together the demo. The investors came in, sat around a boardroom table, talked about progress of the game. They had monitors set up. This was one of those things that if the wind blew across the keyboard wrong, it would fall over and crash. They never played it. They never booted it up. They never looked at it. It was just glad handling and handshakes, and then they went. So they were not happy. They were not happy about that. And I don't remember. I'll have to go through emails or posts. I have an archive of Portal of Evil. It's multiple gigs in size. I'll have to see why they named it Bone Machine, but it had to do with the conditions under which it was written. So the more I talked to Eric and the more I knew how much blood, sweat, and tears he had poured into MechWarrior 2, the more I got to admire him and I got to like him. And so we started conversing more and that sort of things. And then as the website kind of lost its focus on, holy crap, this guy believes he's a spirit dragon in 6 dimensions and can actually cast spells. Here's his Angel Fire website. Let's laugh at him. And just kind of turned into a nerd lounge at the end. Eric would talk about his health. And it turns out that Eric was suffering from acute hematomacrosis, which is basically the liver would go into overdrive, not cleanse the blood like it was supposed to, but dump out tons of bilirubin, which the body, of course, can't do anything with, and it will poison your brain and you'll die. So, and it could also do fun things like cause you to suffer internal bleeding in your esophagus and tons of other hilarious stuff. So he couldn't work steadily. His wife, Jackie, had different but equally terrible health situations. They were just waiting on SSDI. They couldn't get on SSDI, and I thought it was terrible. And so I asked him one day, I sent him an email because we had traded email addresses, and I asked Eric, I said, look, can I do something for you? This was before GoFundMe. This was before Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee. This is any of that. But there was this website called PayPal. And I said, Eric, you created MechWarrior 2. You're famous, dude. You got that little 3D landscape fractal terrain program. Does that work? Well, yes. And I said, well, let me go to my website. Let me set up a page on my website. People can buy that program from you and then donate whatever they want through this thing called PayPal, and then I'll give the money to you. And he said, let me think about it. And he came back to me and he said, I was thinking about saying no, just because it seemed kind of weird to beg people on the internet for money. Oh, dear Eric, if you had only been able to stay with us a little bit longer. So he said, but I told Jackie about it, and she said, you're a damn fool if you don't accept this guy's friendship and this offer. So he said, I'm going to do it, and thank you. You are awesome. And if you ever make it up to Utah, you've got a couch to crash on. I'll take you in the Miata, and we'll do the town. And it kind of, if this had happened today, I think, it would have gone up on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and Instagram and this, that, and the other. And I think it would have put him probably in a much more comfortable position, but it did help. I never asked how much it made. I never looked at the PayPal account that I'd set up for him, but he said it helped until SSDI kicked in. And so we got to be even tighter friends. And one day I asked him, I said, because he knew that I was a D&D nerd. And this was around the time that I had started to work with Gary. And so I asked him I said, well, do you play? Did you play? And he said, well, before I went to college, I used to play in a little comic shop here in Utah. And then my DM was a guy who had to leave because he got an office job in Wisconsin. And I said, oh, yeah, interesting. Because Wisconsin was where TSR was. And he said, yeah, you might have heard of my DM. It was Tracy Hickman. Eric's DM was Tracy Hickman. Which is just awesome. That's just wonderful. Things like Skype and other reliable voice chat systems were just coming into being at that time. And he and I said, between the two of us, we should figure out a way that you can play Dungeons and Dragons with the Sunday gaming group. Do you want to do that? And he was enthusiastic about it. So I think we ended up using Skype. We would Skype call. And I know, and if I still was in contact with any of that Sunday group, I would ask their forgiveness. I know it drove them up the wall because the VoIP was not great. But it was by that point, it was 2008, 2009, you know. Nowadays, it would be like, oh, yeah, sure, no problem. Turn your camera on. Boom, you're at the table. Everybody's got broadband, right? But it was like, I'm sorry, Eric, could you repeat that? Eric, did you hear what Dan said? Dan, could you repeat that? Dan said he's not in your line of sight. And it would make what should have been a very simple D&D game a much more drawn-out affair. And I know it bugged people. But we persevered. And there were times when Eric was just not there. He wouldn't respond to the group email. Weeks would go by. Or he'd say, yes, I'm going to be there. And then I'd get a call or a text from him just a little before the game. And he'd say, look, I have to go in to town and get a prescription for Yaki. I don't know when I'll be back. And so it went. And eventually he kind of fell off the radar, and I would send emails or I would call and his phone would just go straight to voicemail. And I'd never, I wouldn't hear from him. One year for Christmas, I got a set of mammoth bone dice from him. They're little tiny things because like the full like 1.5 centimeter ones are really expensive, and these were like the little 6 millimeter ones. But he was not able to game with us. And the last while I was like, man, but eventually we'd start getting back in touch. Physical letters would come my way from him, and I would always respond via email. But I found out that his health had taken a turn for the worse. I found out that there were times when he would, be in a coma. Or alternately, Yaki's health would get so bad that he couldn't do anything but focus on her. And so he didn't want to bother me with it, is what he would say. I don't want to bother you. You've done enough, Bill. You've done so much. I didn't want to bother you with it. And I know you guys had your game to play. He didn't want to bother me. Well, the last long stretch of not hearing from Eric passed in April of one year. It was April of 2015. I had just pulled into the Publix. I was going into the Publix to get, I don't know, something. And my phone rings and it's Eric, and I sat in the parking lot and Eric and I talked for about a half an hour. And it was really good to talk to him, and he told me everything that had been going on. How he'd been through the hospital again. Now, we had talked some prior to this, like in the months prior. He was even considering getting a job here in Central Florida because there's ample simulation programming. That's what Eric did. Eric was not a video game guy initially. Eric was a simulation programmer. He programmed flight simulations for the military. And we're going to dog ear this page and flip back in the book a little bit. His interview to become the lead graphics programmer for MechWarrior 2, he was in Miami in 1993. He was broke. Eric was an exceptionally talented musician. He had performed at Carnegie Hall. He was a keyboardist, guitarist, saxophonist. But he was broke because he had left the aerospace industry. And he was reading a copy of, I want to say he grabbed an LA Times, he told me. And there was a little ad, a little help wanted ad. Programmers wanted for Activision must be skilled in 3D programming, Borland C++. So he called the phone number and did an interview right then. Now, the reason he was in Miami was he was going to hire himself out to a cruise ship to be a musician. The preliminaries had already been done. He was going to go to the port of Miami, board a cruise ship, and spend like a year doing just cruises and being a musician. And they're like, no, we'll fly you out for a face-to-face, but it sounds like your credits are, your accreditation and all that stuff is good. Is there a fax machine in the airport? Can you fax us a resume? That sort of thing. So he went off and became the programmer of MechWarrior 2. So I even pointed him at some people. They were members of the church my wife and I were attending at the time, who are looking for programmers and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, hey, this sounds like the gig. And he's like, yeah, this sounds awesome. And I was like, how cool would it be if you and Yaki lived down here? And oh, just so damn neat. I said, we'll surprise the entire group. Like, I'm not going to tell them. We'll surprise everyone. I'll have you over the first game day. And you bring your laptop and sit in the bedroom and call on Skype and pretend that you're having connection problems. And we'll drive everybody up the wall with, oh, I can't hear you. Can you hear the table? Can you hear the guys? And then if you'd come in. And, we thought about doing that, but these weirdos with their weird company, and I don't know. So it didn't work out. Then there was the long gap. And I sat in the Publix parking lot, like I said, and we talked. And he told me he was eager to get back to playing D&D with us. And he said, you are the best DM next to Tracy Hickman I've ever had. He's like, you're a great DM. I was like, oh, that's pretty nice. And the last thing I said to my friend Eric Peterson, other than thank you and I'll talk to you later, was, I'm glad you tracked me down. I'm looking forward to you gaming with us again. Because we were gonna try Google Voice this time because it had a video feature. And he said to me, of course, you're my best friend. You're my best friend. I said, thank you, man. That means a lot. He said, well, it's true. And exactly 5 years ago, this morning, I had finished up another stupid semester of useless adult attempt to get a degree. I was looking forward to having a relaxing summer. And I had my shiny new smartphone when I was walking across the campus at Seminole State College. And I pulled up the mobile version of Facebook. And I saw the notification from his family that Eric had passed. Just like that. I've lost a lot of friends over the years. It's a part of life. Some stepped out on their own. Others just time ran out for them. I buried both my parents. Watched all 4 of my grandparents die from when I was 6 until when I was 10. And even as a kid, I understood the finality of it. Scott's gone. Tim's gone. Mary Jo's gone. And I know whether you believe in God and an afterlife or you don't, we're just a chemical soup and a rack of calcium with muscles draped over it. Regardless of where you fall in that, gone is gone. There is something about Eric's passing that does not compute. I'm going to get this phone call one day from him. And he'll say, "Oh, no, no way, man. No, that was a mistake. Nah, they screwed up. No, I'm fine. Just been taking care of Yaki. When are we going to game again?" Like a dog, and they got somebody who took care of him. The dog doesn't know any better when the master dies. They'll lie by the front door, and every time it opens, they'll jump up and go, "Oh no, it's not them." Every other person I know is gone. They're gone and they're not coming back. I'm not going to hear from them again. I talk to my dad from time to time, but he doesn't answer. I can feel the finality of every passing. But if I live to be 1,000 years old, there will always be an unreality about Eric. That there's just been some kind of clerical error in the universe. That my friend will call me back one day and ask me when he can get in on a game. or how I've been, or how the girls are. When am I coming to Utah? I know he's not. Instinctively, I still feel like I'm going to get that email or that phone call. Thank you, Doomsword. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jeremy. Jeremy was there too. Jeremy was there at the beginning too. He knew Eric. I can think about Scott. I can go all the way back to people who are gone. My grandparents. I was the first person in my adolescence. John. He was a college age guy just as I was starting high school, but he was a lot of fun. And he wrecked his motorcycle, died. And I don't have any processing about them except that they're gone. But I'm still lying next to the door, feeling like Eric's gonna walk through it one day. And he would have loved this. Eric would have loved this. Everything about this, Eric would have loved. You know, you got a 1080p camera and a boom mic, multiple cameras you can put on your Dwarven Forge. Everybody's got broadband. Holy shit, I wish I could show them the 3D printing I could do. You know, the past 8 years, the technology would have put us in the same room with each other. I miss him so much. And every year, this time, I say, I'm not gonna get upset about it. I just gotta let it go. I just gotta put it in the same place, the same container, the same little bell jar with the grandparents and my mom and dad, Scott, Tim, John, the other Tim, David, MJ. And for Eric, I can't. And I don't know why. There was something that I cannot compute. There is a divide by zero error in the Eric Peterson equation in my head. I don't know what it is. I'm a rational, relatively intelligent person. And I miss him very much. There's two things that I'm pissed off at him about for going away so soon. One, that son of a bitch was going to send me the source code discs to MechWarrior 2. I would have had something that Activision doesn't have. Well, whoever, I guess it's Blizzard Activision, is it now? I mean, they might have them on a one of the quick cartridges or something. And it was literally like before he went down and then called me that last time, we discussed it. I'm going to find my discs with MechWarrior 2 source code on them and send them to you. And the other thing that he was going to send me for valuation purposes was all the stuff that Tracy Hickman gave him. Like game notes and stuff before Tracy went to TSR. And the modules that he sold out of the comic store, like before TSR published them. His wife, Jackie, I've fallen in and out of touch with her too. Guys, I've tried to call her. Her phone is currently not working. But he was going to send me those, and then Jackie said, I know he wanted you to have these things. He's got a bunch of magic cards, and I want you to have his dice, and because he loved playing D&D with you. She said that was like, he enjoyed it so much. He would talk about that, and when he couldn't, he was just crestfallen. And she said, I tell him to go play, but so the few times that I've talked to her, she said that she has to go back to California and go to the storage facility and get the things and search through the things and try and find the things. And if she ever does, now the cards I can't speak for. I don't know magic cards from a hole in the ground. But if she finds the Tracy Hickman stuff, I am going to take it to Paul Stormberg. Paul is going to contact Tracy. We're going to go over it with a fine-tooth comb. Paul is going to evaluate it, auction it, and then give her the money. That is my plan. If I ever get my hands on it, I'll look at it. I can't say I won't make a scan of a thing or two for myself, but so damn him for dropping dead. It's a real, the gold is in the moment, you know. I miss you, Eric. Every year I say I'm going to do a Let's Remember Eric show, and I'm going to be happy, and I'm going to laugh. And all I feel is the absence. And that was the story of Eric. And I have never found a more fitting quote to describe Eric than this. It's from Hunter S. Thompson. There he goes, one of God's own prototype, too weird to even be considered for production. If there is ever a phrase that could describe anyone I ever knew, it was that, and that was him. I told you guys he played at Carnegie Hall. And I guess I've run out of fun stuff to say. We had as many as 30 people watching the stream, and now it's just 19. He told me how he snuck onto stage at a Jimmy Page show. Some friends showed up one day at his house and said, Jimmy Page is playing at the Forum. Do you want to come? And he said, I don't have a ticket. And they're like, don't worry about it. We'll figure out a way. So they piled into Eric's car or van or something and drove over there. And he grabbed up a video card, an ISA video card, and walked right up to the security guy at the back and said, we have to get in. And he said, where's your laminate? And he said, and he held up the video card and said, if this doesn't get into the soundboard, there's no concert tonight. And the guy took it from him and kind of turned it over in his hands and gave him a little orange sticker to put on his shirt and said, okay. And apparently he thought it du jour to let the sound people know, to let Mr. Page know that the repair guy was there. And so Jimmy Page comes over and says, who the bloody hell are you? And so Eric told him, and he laughed and thought it was funny. And so they sat up on stage behind the curtain. He said, I sat on top of a speaker stack and watched Jimmy Page give a concert. So that's a fun Eric story. The most memorable thing Eric ever did as a player at the table, I will tell you, unquestionably, the most memorable thing he did, his Magic User Tour had a proficiency in darts. And he would unremittingly throw handfuls of darts into melee when we were playing the Against the Giants series. And he let fly with darts. Now, the rate of fire on darts are 3 a round. This meant that even a magic user, I'll look up how much damage does a dart do. Is it 1 to 4 or 1 to 3 for a thrown dart? Does anybody know off the top of their heads? Look at the PDF here. I'll find this. Dart. There's the equipment. Dart. 1 to 3. In AD&D, there's a percentage chance, and it's a low chance when you have a big target like a giant or an ogre, but like if you have 2 people fighting and you throw 3 darts at them, the odds are pretty even that the one that hits of the 3 will hit a character. And I would say the ranger, the fighter magic user, the fighter thief, the dwarf fighters, they're all in melee. What are you going to do? I'm going to throw darts. And there's a groan from around the table. He would never fail in every melee to throw a dart. And it seems like it was always 2 or 3 points of damage. Never 1, always 2 or 3. It adds up. So they were in a fight and Tor got killed. And they took him somewhere. Either the party had a cleric that could cast Raise Dead, or they were taking him to get Raise Dead cast on him. And the guy that played the ranger said, just a minute, and took all of his darts. And so they raised him back from the dead. Now, in the ensuing week, Eric was out, and he came back. And a combat started, and I said, Eric, what are you going to do? And he said, I'm going to throw darts. I said, you got no darts. Oh, okay. So I don't remember what he did. And the Rangers player says to Eric, do you need darts? And he was like, yes, I'm out of darts. And he says, well, I happen to have some, and I will sell them to you. And I think he wanted like 10 gold a piece. And he said, oh, certainly. Darts in AD&D cost, I think it just went past Eric. I honestly don't think he caught on, but it was funny anyway. Darts. They're not expensive. They're 5 silver a piece. So he basically charged like 1,500% markup or something. So he gave Eric his darts back, like, and it's not many. I try and stomp on that because I'll have magic user or illusionist players or even any other players who fill that one proficiency, or if they have a spare proficiency with darts, and then say, I'm buying 200 darts. These aren't pub darts. You can't just carry them in a ditty bag. D&D dart. It's not a little thing you're playing cricket with. You're gonna carry like 6 to 9 of them at most. So that was the funniest thing. That was the wildest thing that Eric ever did, was always throwing darts into melee. And I would tell him they're fighting man-sized targets. I mean, if we look in the Dungeon Master's Guide, See if I can find this. Gary was like, oh, missile fire into melee is a fairly simple procedure, and then there's like an entire column in the Dungeon Master's Guide. Have a lovely evening, Wave of Mutilation. Dawn of Mutilation, I'm sorry. We had a regular user here named Wave of Mutilation, and I just my apologies, Dawn. Look, I can't find it, but the point is, it's not a simple system. But I figured it out, and I had it on a piece of paper or something. Man-sized target, this is the percentage, blah, 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 blah. And I would tell him, it's you're gonna, you know, you're gonna hit somebody. Okay. And he'd plonk one in. And invariably he'd nail somebody. And it finally pissed off the Rangers player enough that he robbed him of his darts while he was dead. And when he got resurrected, he charged him like 300 gold to get them back. Which, in retrospect, was kind of a dumb lesson to try and teach Eric, because he didn't say, I am charging you this much money to get your darts back because I want you to remember, mage, before you hurl another one, that you've been striking me as often as our foes, etc. Nope. And the lesson didn't stick because he kept throwing them into melee. Here's the paragraph. Likewise, discharge of missiles into existing melee is easily handled. No, it's not, Gary. You lied. The first sentence of that paragraph was a lie, Gary. It is permissible, of course, and the results might not be too incompatible with the desires of the discharging party. Assign probabilities to each participant in the melee or target group to sheer numbers. In the case of participants of varying size, use half value for size S, normal value for size M, and then 1/2 value 1 and 1/2 value for creatures size L, which are not too much larger than man size. Total values for each group and the ratio of one over the other. If size A has 4 man-sized opponents and size B has 3 man-sized participants and one size L bugbear, the ratio is 4-3. Then, according to the direction of missile discharge, determine hits by the same ratio. If 7 missiles were loosed, 4 would have a chance to hit side A, 3 side B. In cases where the ratio does not match the number of missiles, convert it to a percentage chance. 1/7 equals 14 or 15, depending on whether the missiles are coming from ahead or the side of A, 14%, or from behind, 15%. Thus, 4/7 equals 56 or 60% chance that a missile will hit side A. The minor differences represent the fact that there will be considerable shifting and maneuvering during combat, which will tend to expose both opponents to fire on a near equal basis. Such missiles must then be assigned by situation or random determination to target creatures, a 2-hit determination made, and damage assessed for those which do hit. Large missiles will be treated in the same fashion. If one opponent group is significantly larger than the other, accurate missiles which have a small area of effect can be directed at the larger opponent group with a great hope of success. You may assign a minor chance of the missile striking a friend if you wish, but this writer, for instance, always allows archer or artillery to hit a giant or similar creature engaged against a human or smaller opponent. Missiles from giants are approximately 1 foot in diameter, as are those from catapults. Those from large catapults and trebuchets are approximately 2 feet in diameter. So it's not easy. And he did it anyway. and it was funny. I mean, you know, if you're facing 25 kobolds and it's 4 characters, your missiles are always going to hit the kobolds, right? That's what he's saying. Anyway, I think I'm going to call it an evening. I just wanted to share a little bit of Eric with you guys. I'll try not to be so down about it next year. I'll be back tomorrow and we'll talk about Dark Tower, and then we'll play Gamma World at 9 o'clock. Thank you, Jeremy and Doomsword, for the super chats tonight. I really appreciate it. If you're not subscribed to the channel, most of the time, I would say the other 270 some days a year, I don't do this. I don't get upset. Well, I don't get sad and weepy. I'll get upset. So please click the subscription button, click the bell icon for notifications. I'll talk about the con tomorrow, the convention that's coming up. So y'all have a good evening, and you know, be good to each other and talk to people. You know, take 2 minutes to call a friend. Good night.
Have you seen my owl bear? Here's to all the weirdos everywhere, in the woods and in the air. Have you seen my owl bear? Should I shave off all my hair? Bobs are all around, some live in tunnels underground. Some are fat, some are rich, some are sleeping in a ditch. Can you ride a crooked horse without a saddle, way off course? Naked as a toad, all the way to Smoky Joe's. Have you seen the little creep driving fast in his little green Jeep? He smells like fish and brandy, but his rotten teeth look dandy. Take me to the show, I don't care if fast or slow. From action flicks to dancing dicks, just take me to the show.